So, the very same people who call you a soy boy or a cuck are flipping absolute shit over the fact that Ariel is black. And we're going to talk about it today.
In an effort to appear woke or down with the SJWs, Disney has decided to cast a black woman as Ariel, the main titular character for the Little Mermaid franchise. That's right, they're straight up blackwashing this thing, without thoughts as to how this could offend or turn off original fans of the original movie.
Hello everyone, I am Faye Fahrenheit and I'm going to respond today to No Bullshit's video on the Disney live-action remake of The Little Mermaid. Now, because of the fact that he refers to himself as No BS, you would assume that we're about to be entering a world of unfettered rationality and just brutal factoids over feeloids logic. It is logic time. Time to be extremely rational. So we'll have to see today if what No Bullshit posted qualifies as an overreaction.
Here's a picture of the new actress, who is named Halle Bailey, which many are already confusing with Halle Berry. And as if that initial awkwardness about this actress isn't bad enough, they're also pulling this direct and deliberate blackwashing of Ariel with some no-name up-and-coming actress, who doesn't really add any value or notoriety to the picture. This kind of move would be much more justified if they at least used someone with a little name recognition, or even someone already famous elsewhere.
According to No Bullshit, fans are turned off by the new Ariel because she's black, and therefore this ruins The Little Mermaid because Halle Bailey is too confusing. Everyone will not be able to tell her apart from Halle Berry. Plus, she no famous elsewhere, except she is famous. She's actually a famous singer who was discovered by Beyonce. She was specifically scouted out and found by one of the most successful black artists in the modern day. Everyone no understand Halle Bailey versus Halle Berry.
And this is part of the reason why someone like Scarlett Johansson being cast as the lead in the movie Ghost in the Shell makes sense. Because even though the SJWs cried and complained about whitewashing when that happened, there still was the obvious reason for casting Scarlett there. On top of being stunning and beautiful and a proven actress, Scarlett also has worldwide name recognition. She's a household name. But with this new movie and this new situation, casting discount Halle Berry here for Ariel, this can only be happening for one reason now. It's not because she's famous or noteworthy, it's because they wanted to make a white character into a black or brown one, to appease woke social justice warriors and try to make Disney look progressive and down with the cause along the way.
So casting Scarlett Jo is okay because she's already famous. Two things. One, why wasn't there an equally talented and equally famous Asian person to play that role? And two, why are you okay with a white actor taking an Asian character's role as long as they're sufficiently talented, but not okay with a black woman playing Ariel? No Bullshit says it's because Halle Bailey is a talentless nobody, but if he had Googled her or listened to any of her work, he'd know that isn't true. Here's a clip of her singing.
Unforgettable. That's what you are. Unforgettable, though near or far.
It should be pointed out that they're extremely famous black women they could have cast. So if they were only looking for an actress who was black and it was purely a diversity pick, they could have chosen someone who was much more famous. They could have cast anyone who would have got more seats into the theater. She was chosen to be the lead in musicals specifically because of her singing abilities. I, for one, am grateful for that, because in the live-action Beauty and the Beast, Disney cast a person for a role solely because they were famous. They cast Emma Watson, and no offense, but she cannot fucking sing. I'm grateful they chose a sing-songy person for their movie, which will be mostly comprised of sing-songy stuff, and she has a voice that's befitting the original Ariel.
Ironic how the same leftists who cried about whitewashing and Ghost in the Shell, well, they're also the same people praising the blackwashing of Ariel in The Little Mermaid. And I think they truly believe that hypocrisy is justified because they hate white people and shame us so much. And this is also a bit of culture war for the left here too. Make no mistake, guys, they're treating every role, movie, and franchise like they're pieces on the chessboard or little figures in the game Risk. SJWs want complete and total domination. And not only are movies, TV, and pop culture either, but also politics, sports, banking, schools, and public places. And even in your everyday life, they want control of everything, like Big Brother, because the radical socialist leftists, like from the movie 1984.
So, okay, wow, he caught us. It's true. I hate white people, and I want to make all of the banks transgender, and all schools will be black schools now, and the government is going to make it illegal for any mermaids to be depicted as white, just like in the movie 1984, not the book. That one doesn't have any cultural Marxist black mermaids in it.
So then he just rants about redheaded erasure.
It's also worth noting that there's another troubling trend being furthered here by this decision. This isn't the first time a black or brown person has taken the role of a formerly white character in movies or television, nor is this the first time they've blackwashed a redheaded character specifically, like with The Little Mermaid.
The thing that he neglects to mention, or perhaps isn't aware of, is that natural redheads aren't exclusively white. Vice did an article titled Documenting the UK's Black and Mixed Race Gingers, in which they state, "How would you describe a typical redhead? Do you think of Julianne Moore, light-skinned and beautiful with rust-colored hair and a flush of crimson through her porcelain cheeks? Or do you think of Ed Sheeran? Either way, it's likely that the redhead in your mind is white. Red hair is mainly considered the preserve of Northern Europe, a Celtic Germanic trait. This is what resulted in London-based photographer Michelle Marshall's quest to capture as many Afro-Caribbean redheads as possible as part of her project MC1R. MC1R, or, forgive me here, melanocortin 1 receptor, if you're feeling fancy, is the gene responsible for red hair. Mutations in it can cause various degrees of pigmentation. It'll either work properly, causing your hair to get darker, or it will become dysfunctional, not activate, and then fail to turn red pigment into brown, causing a buildup of red pigment and thus red hair. It's estimated in Scotland 13% of the population have ginger hair. Compare this with the world's population where 1 to 2% is thought to be redheaded, and redheads from ethnic minorities are even rarer. A quirk of nature it might seem, but the heritage of those with the distinctive trait doesn't point to one isolated corner of the earth. Parentage range from Brazil to Jamaica to Ghana. Barry Starr, a geneticist from Stanford University, took this further by saying red hair carriers in the Caribbean and Africa are for the most part due to migration or gene flow. Dr. George Bubsey from the Wellcome Trust Center for Human Genetics agrees. He says that the red hair and freckles is likely the result of the historical interactions between Europeans and Africans in the formation of the Caribbean populations, most notably with the Brits, as the Spanish and Portuguese went to South America. I want to stir the perception that most of us have of a redhead as a white Caucasian individual potentially of Celtic descent, she told VSCO earlier this year. While there seems to be an underlying Irish-Scottish connection to the MCR1 gene, in the occurrence of red hair, I am not sure that being ginger still only means being Scottish, Irish, Welsh, or even being white. I'm going to include pictures of naturally redheaded mixed race people for good measure, and those pictures are going to be strolling by for the next minute as we talk about another article. The article is on genetics, and it's from Stanford's The Tech, and it goes into how albinism affects people of African descent differently than Caucasian people. The article says, a redhead of African descent is about as common as a Caucasian with red eyes, and there's good reason for this. Being an albino causes them both. Except when people are of mixed ancestry, red hair in Africans is usually caused by a type of albinism. When people think of albinos, they tend to think of white hair, pale skin, and red eyes. While this is true for Caucasians, albinism works differently in people of African descent. There are a few different kinds of albinism in people of African descent, but the one that gives red hair is called rufous albinism. People with this condition have a red bronze skin color, ginger red hair, and blue or brown eyes. So how is someone an albino? All of our coloring, our skin, hair, and eye colors come from melanin. Melanin is just pigment or colored chemical substance like the ones that are used to dye clothes or your hair. Melanin comes in two different forms: pheomelanin, the red kind, and eumelanin, the brown kind. Being an albino just means your body doesn't make melanin the right way. There are lots of different genes that can be mutated to cause albinism. The red hair in African people is caused by a mutation in a gene called TYRP1. The protein made by this gene is thought to be involved in bringing together all enzymes needed to make brown melanin. So redheads of African descent completely lack brown melanin and are therefore albino. But what about red-haired Caucasians? Are they albinos too? Well, no. The red hair in Caucasian people is caused by a mutation in the gene MC1R, which was talked about in the Vice article, that is involved determining the balance of two variations of melanin in the body. They end up with more of what can be thought of as the red kind than the brown kind. They're not albinos because they still make some of both kinds of melanin. I'd also like to note that this isn't the first time Disney has had a mermaid of color, the first being Gabriella, who is a Latina and deaf mermaid who communicates with sign language. She appeared on the television show for The Little Mermaid, and she has an octopus friend who serves as her translator, and she teaches Ariel American Sign Language. That was back in 1992 and 1993. Growing up, I had a friend who was half Kenyan and half Irish, and she had caramel-colored skin and red hair and green eyes. She did look black, with her facial features being that of a black woman, but with a natural dark ginger-colored afro and almost pale emerald-colored eyes. Her mother was extremely dark-skinned and from Kenya, and her father was a white man who grew up in Kentucky. She grew up watching The Little Mermaid just like I did, so I'm not sure why a natural redhead like her wouldn't be allowed to see herself in the character Ariel just because she happens to be half black. So why can't a half-black redhead see herself in a redheaded character?
For example, Zendaya plays the new MJ and love interest in the recent Spider-Man movies. And MJ is a character that had traditionally been redheaded and white and sexy for generations.
She had been sexy for generations, but then they ruined her.
Next, there was the character Starfire from Teen Titans. This Justice League subgroup in the DC comic book universe has had loads of years of history and dozens of adaptations too. And although this character Starfire is an alien who's often portrayed with orangish-colored skin, she also still appears to be red-headed and having the complexion and bone structure of a European-descendant white woman. That was until recently when they cast Starfire as a black chick with red weave now for no good reason, other than to virtue signal and make this new TV version woke.
I'm beginning to think No Bullshit has a thing for pale redheads, like maybe that's his type, and because his type is a redhead, the whole world now has to know that this movie for 9-year-old girls isn't sexually gratifying to him because he can't masturbate to Ariel if she's black, but he still can masturbate to her if she's half carp, so whatever you're into, dude. Sorry the new Starfire doesn't please your boner.
And if you think about it more, at only 1 to 2% of the population, redheads are one of the largest unprotected minorities in the world. They've also been attacked throughout history, and I'm not just talking about the kick a ginger day kind of thing. For example, Hitler's Nazi Germany and that regime considered redheads to be demonic, and they even went on to ban marriage between two redheads, believing they would go on to produce more demon-like children. So with that said, how come Jews are the only people who get support and sympathy and future protection because of what happened to them in World War II? Redheads were persecuted there, and they still are to this day. So I say we stop this madness now, Hollywood. Stop erasing our redheaded characters, because you're kind of being racist, a little offensive, and somewhat Hitler-esque.
Uh-oh, redheads are oppressed like Jews, Hitler, God. I thought people on the left were the ones always calling people Nazis, but okay, alright. So No Bullshit mentioned that Sophie Turner was an example of positive redheaded representation in his video. And I just want to point out that she dyed her hair red to play the role of Sansa Stark, and that she's actually a natural blonde. So this is not a case of redheaded representation unless, of course, you're okay with dyed hair, because as you mentioned, redheads are such a small part of the population naturally, so dyeing your hair seems to be a reasonable compromise for an actor to make. So, because I have demonstrated that A, ginger people of color exist, and B, you are okay with a fake redhead playing white Sansa Stark, so therefore, you must concede that it is okay redheaded representation for Halle Bailey to play Ariel, as long as she dyes her hair red for the movie. Yay. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? I don't think I'm wrong. My logic is following suit with his redheaded Nazi victimization argument, so I assume no bullshit will simply concede that gingers exists in all the colors of the rainbow, and because most of the remake fan art I've seen shows her with red hair, that kind of, rebuffs my point that people think she's still gonna have red hair. So we're good now, right? We've covered all this ground, and I'm sure no bullshit he'll just come around to the fact that gingers of color exist in movies, right?
Next, let's talk about another interesting coincidence with this new live-action remake of The Little Mermaid. I found it pretty funny when I realized Lin-Manuel Miranda is the one doing the music for this thing. Because if you are aware of him and his career and his musical background, you know this Miranda guy is the king of black or brown-washing characters. In fact, Miranda got rich and famous for producing and starring in the hit Broadway musical Hamilton, which is not only black or brown-washing characters, but they're also black or brown-washing historical figures, namely the founding fathers of the United States of America. God bless this country.
Hamilton exists to destroy the white race.
But let's not get distracted. The musical Hamilton is a sort of historical-based story, inspired mostly by the life of United States founding father Alexander Hamilton. But also, other founding fathers appear in the show as well. And as the SJWs like to put it, the casting of this was color-conscious, mostly being non-white actors playing characters from American history, who were of course actually really white. So I guess you could say Lin-Manuel Miranda pioneered modern race-bending in casting, and he took the SJW tactic of black and brown washing formerly white characters to a whole new level. So I guess it's really no surprise Miranda is involved in this new The Little Mermaid project. In fact, I would guess this kind of recasting of formerly white characters was his idea to begin with.
So Hamilton exists to destroy the white race, and Lin-Manuel Miranda invented Hamilton, which is a show that portrays America in a very positive light, to trick you into accepting the destruction of the white race. Yeah. Totally makes sense. It makes tons of sense.
If the cast of Hamilton doesn't sound like we imagined the founders sounding, well, it doesn't look like them either.
This is the story of America then, told by America now. It looks like America now.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. And when I meet Thomas Jefferson, I'ma compel him to include women in the sequel.
Hamilton is an art piece, pretty much only exists to suck the dick of America. I have seen it, I have enjoyed it, but the founding fathers didn't give a shit about women's rights at all, and the show really doesn't exist to comment on the fact that the founding fathers weren't perfect people or criticize any ideas about America, especially ideas about American exceptionalism. Lin-Manuel Miranda totally goes out of his way to portray the United States and the founding fathers as the good guys, and he presents an incredibly sanitized version of America's history, and it's still not good enough for no bullshit. You know why? Because he's Puerto Rican. Because he's Puerto Rican. Because he's Puerto Rican. And he should have known better than to be born Puerto Rican. Puerto Ricans are Americans, but, I mean, if Lin-Manuel Miranda really loved America, he would be white. Which is why it's bad for Hamilton to be Puerto Rican. You can't play Alexander Hamilton if you're from Puerto Rico. Everyone knows that. But it's okay for Jesus and Santa Claus and the Romans to be white. Those people can be depicted as white. In fact, everyone will get mad if you don't depict them as white. I think I'm catching on to the theme here.
Monsieur Hamilton.
Monsieur Lafayette.
Destroy the white race once
I
again.
say no sweat. We're finally on the field. We've had quite a run.
Immigrants, we get the job done.
Yes, now that's Lin-Manuel Miranda's evil plan to make sure no more white people has succeeded. All the white people are canceled because Hamilton has black people in it, which isn't historically accurate. Everyone knows black people were invented after Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement.
And while this isn't as bad or manipulative as recasting actual historical figures like in Hamilton, this is in the same ballpark though. In fact, to most people and especially kids, Ariel and the other Disney princesses, they are more real to them than these historical figures anyway. Not to mention, with this woke casting happening, they're not only getting a role model for young black chicks to look up to, they're also taking away one for young redheaded girls to look up to.
He sees white people as like losing if we don't win white Ariel. Like if little black girls have a princess they can look up to in his mind, somehow white people are harmed by that. Like whenever someone complains about forced diversity, it reminds me of this infamous child psychology test from the 1940s called the doll test, in which children were asked which dolls are good and which dolls are bad, and they're asked to say why. And I want to show a few short clips of children taking a few versions of this test here really quick.
Show me the dumb child.
Dumb child.
Okay, why is she the dumb child?
Because she has black skin.
Okay. Show me the bad child. Why is he the bad child?
Because he's really dark.
Show me the dumb child. Why is she the dumb child?
Because she looks black.
Show me the good child. Why is she the good child?
Because she looks whiter.
Show me the child you would like to have as a classmate. Why would you like to have him as a classmate?
Because he's white.
Show me the child who has the skin color most adults like. And show me the child who has the skin color most adults don't like.
Well, show me the ugly child. And why is she the ugly child?
Because she's black.
Show me the good-looking child. And why is she the good-looking child?
Because she's light skinny.
Can you show me the child that has your skin color?
Yeah.
Okay. Show me the child that has the skin color you want.
I want that one.
Okay. Show me the child who has the skin color you don't want.
Do you remember you were asked what skin color do you want? Do you remember which one you said?
Yeah, that one.
Which one?
This one.
Why do you want that skin color?
Because I don't know. I don't know.
How about you? Why do you want that skin color?
Because it looks lighter than this kind, because this looks a lot like that one.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I just don't like the way brown looks, because the way brown looks really nasty for some reason.
And Brielle, they asked what color adults don't like. Do you remember what you said? Which one? That's right, that's what you said. Why do you think adults don't like that color?
Dark.
White people have plenty of white characters already, and the idea that a little black girl watching the new Ariel, that's somehow leading to the destruction of all white people. It would be funny if this man's toxic attitude and the real world consequences of racism weren't a thing.
Now we'll have to refer to the character's original interpretation and this new black one separately. Things will get confusing and convoluted real quick too, certainly. Especially on your next trip to Disney World, where the two versions of Ariel have to face off against each other and have some sort of rap battle or something. Because in the end, that is what's really going on here. This is a bit of a culture war that's been made into an us versus them by our detractors. So while you might not have wanted this battle and you might be over it already, but it's still going on behind the scenes and in discussions being had online too, regardless of your willingness to participate. SJWs want less whites in prominent movie roles.
The idea that we can't have a black mermaid and that fictional characters are by default white is because people like no bullshit are afraid of sharing space on a television screen with people who aren't like them. It's hilarious to me that he mentioned several times that he finds the idea of having two versions of the movie to be confusing. Like the concept of a remake as a concept in and of itself is just overwhelming to his mind. Like, it's so confusing that Halle Bailey sound like Halle Berry What would No Bullshit do if I had like 2 kids and one of them was named Jimmy Smith and the other one was named Johnny Smith? Would he be upset that he couldn't tell my children apart because like their names are too fucking similar? So that's it for my response to No Bullshit's video on the subject of the Little Mermaid remake. But I do want to briefly talk about some of the racist as fuck things I've seen on my social media feeds since the announcement of Halle as Ariel. First up, we have a Facebook group called Christians Against the Little Mermaid. Here are some remarks from before they were taken over by trolls. Enjoy your mute. Nationwide, African American children represent 32% of children who are arrested, 42% of children who are detained, and 52% of children whose cases are judicially waived to criminal court. You see, everybody, they're not racist. They just don't want Ariel to be black because they very not racistly believe all black people are criminals, especially black children. This group was up for maybe 5 hours before it was raided by trolls, and now the purpose of the group appears to be trolling old white ladies who are mad about the new Ariel. And you know, you guys and gals and NBs really saved the group from being a pit of bigoted despair, so hooray for trolling. The next meme I've seen going around is Confederate flag Ariel. We have learned today that mermaids cannot be black, but they can totally be political supporters of the Confederacy. Please look at this image and just visualize for me what you think the kind of person who sees this new casting for Ariel and thinks to themselves, the South will rise again, but this time in Atlantis. Just visualize the person who made this image of Ariel and the Confederate flag. What do you think they look like? Imagine how they're dressed. Imagine how they smell. Get a general gauge of their body odor, their hair, what kind of clothes, shoes they have on. Just picture it all in your mind. Now remember this visualization the next time someone calls you a beta male. This next image features Halle Bailey as sea monkeys. And then we have this dumpster fire meme. And then we have this one where the Little Mermaid smokes menthol cigarettes. Yes, I'm sure all these people are just mad because she won't have red hair. Here are some comments I read in an article which talks about the new casting for the remake. You go ahead and be the gauge on whether or not it's racist. They will destroy everything white! Why are we letting this happen? We used to be European countries. In another 5 years, will they remake Roots with an all-white cast? Is it still legal for a white to marry another white? Hey, the Irish were slaves too, but the world doesn't want to talk about white oppression. White people are being trafficked every day into slavery. When was the last time a black person protested that? I wonder how they'd react if we recast The Cosby Show with white people. Well, I don't know, Grandma Darlene. Probably better than the first Cosby Show, because then the host of the show won't be a serial rapist? Can you please pick a show where the host isn't a fucking monster? Your kind doesn't even know how to swim. How the fuck you gonna star a mermaid? Well, that felt really gross to say. There's this white genocide type image just going around that shows various black stars of movie remakes and concludes that the real reason black people are starring in movies is because of white genocide. Oh no, all the white people, they're going extinct. I can't forget to include this angry white woman on Twitter who said, if Ariel's black, her whole fam will be. Triton, her sisters, her mother. It's turned into a black film, and that's fine, but I'll never accept it as The Little Mermaid because it's not. This is just going to be a mess of ghetto mermaids. Bye! Why are the mermaids ghetto Meg? Finally, we can't forget to give a shout out to the GoFundMe page. They're gonna make her white, but they need $250,000 to do it. So my question are, if African folks going to get all the Disney characters and make them black, what will Snow White's name be if she were black? Fucking Snow White, duh. Why get a Disney character that has been used for decades? It's like going to the thrift store. Why not fight to get a new and improved mermaid with another story? Can we get Tiana and make her Hispanic? Thank you for your participation. Redheaded population worldwide 2%. Black people worldwide 18%. Choosing a black mermaid against a redheaded one, that is racism. Disney has lost its mind. Look who they cast for Aladdin, and now this. People should get over the fact that I just don't like that she doesn't look like the Ariel I grew up with. That's it. It's not about fucking race. If she was a fucking white mermaid with fucking blonde hair, I'd still be upset because that is not the character of Ariel. In the first animated version of The Little Mermaid, Ariel's hair is blonde, and Disney only chose to make her a redhead because they thought that red hair would pair well with the color of her green tail fin. That is the only reason she was depicted as a redhead in the Disney classic. How about a Pocahontas remake with her white? Are you aware that Ariel is a fictional character, whereas Pocahontas is based on an actual person? It's not about being factually correct, it's about being politically correct. There's no difference in making Princess Leia an Indian. Hello, thank you for calling Tatooine. How may I be of assistance? Wow. We finally got redheaded emojis. Let us have Ariel too. Ariel was the only redheaded princess I grew up watching, and the only one I could relate to. Why do they have to change that? They work so hard to find Aladdin and Jasmine, but not hard enough to find Ariel. I'm not saying she's not great, but this is Ariel. Actually, biologically speaking, it doesn't really make sense considering these merfolk live on the seafloor. They would have skin pigmentation closer in hue to that of the sand as a means of camouflage. And because they live underwater, probably quite some distance from the shallows, to avoid human contact. It's scientific reasons why mermaids have to be white. Mermaids don't exist. You can't fake science. Reasons why mermaids have to be white. That's not how. Alright, whatever. There always has to be a black sequel to every movie. It's just a controlling side of government to keep people sucking butt with government for the love of money. I just want to go back to the time when everything wasn't like this, to a time where we can do and say things without shit. Great business move by Disney. Anyone who writes a bad review will be declared racist via social media hot takes, thus incentivizing critics to avoid harsh critiques. It's true. This was all planned all along for Disney to avoid criticism, because you can't criticize movies that have black people in them. I have never in my life seen a race that thinks they have been left out of everything. It's like, if they have to have a white version, then they have to make a black version. It's so stupid. Hans Christian Andersen's turning in his grave. Race baiting to the extreme. Thanks for causing division in America. Why are you guys mad? A white guy got cast as Goku in DBZ. Shaking my head, and that movie sucks Dragon Balls. This is like the only good comment, though, on this whole thread. So I think that's enough angry white folks for one afternoon. If you want to read either of those two articles, they're in the description. And no bullshit, I linked his video in the description too. If you want to like and subscribe and stuff, you can, but I'm not your fucking boss.